It looks like Dad is not doing well anymore. Emma, can you handle the rest? Wait, what? Where are you going, Olivia? Especially when your father is in such a critical condition. Don't you get it? He's going to join Mom up in heaven soon. He says he's leaving the remaining decisions to you and my brother. What? I couldn't believe what I just heard from my sister-in-law. Even though my father-in-law was hospitalized, she just abandoned him like that. What am I supposed to do now? My name's Emma. I'm a 37-year-old part-time worker and housewife, married for 10 years. My husband holds a regular job. We have a son who's in 2nd grade. Our family relationship has been pretty good, and we've been living happily. But one day, that all changed. It started 2 years ago. I was about to drop off my son at preschool when the phone rang. It was my husband, who had left for work early that morning. Mom passed away. What? I'm heading to my folks' place now. Emma, please come over with our son later. His voice was incredibly heavy with grief, and understandably so. His own parent had just passed away. It would be strange if he was able to keep it together. I too was in shock, unable to move for a moment. I never imagined my mill would be gone. It was so sudden. With those farts, I took our son and headed to the hospital. By the time I arrived, grieving relatives, including my deeply saddened husband, were gathered there. Mom, the cause of my mill's death was a heart attack. Many family members, including me, were shedding tears. My mill was like the sun, always brightening up the room, always cheering everyone up, always at the center. Losing such a person, we all fell into deep sorrow. Especially my father-in-law, who had a great relationship with his wife, was so distraught that he couldn't speak to anyone for a while after the funeral. It became clear how central a figure my mill had been. But even in such a situation, my mill was remarkable. There was a video she had recorded, saying she wanted it played if she passed away. It was kept at the family house. The one who found it was none other than my father-in-law. Saying he was scared to watch it alone, he gathered us, the family. He seems to have invited my sister-in-law and her husband, but they declined, saying they weren't up for it without my mill there. So, it was just me, my husband, our son, and my father-in-law watching the video. If you're watching this, it means I'm no longer with you. You're not making a sad face, are you? My mill was absolutely spot on, as if she could see what was happening now. You probably are, right? It's tough to say goodbye after all these years together. But think of it this way. I'm up there waiting for you. That makes it more reassuring, doesn't it, huh? If you went to heaven first, you'd probably be helpless without me, right? I'll make sure everything's set up and ready. Just give me some more time. Yay, preparing might take me about 50 years. My mill's approach to life was admirable till the very end. She knew we'd be grieving, and reassured my father-in-law, hinting at a place for him in heaven. Saying it'd take 50 years was probably her way of telling him to live life to the fullest for a long time. Truly, she was an amazing mother and wife. After that, my father-in-law slowly recovered and regained his energy. Seeing that, both my husband and I were relieved. However, just half a year ago, as usual, when I visited the family house, I noticed my sister-in-law and her husband's car parked outside. Come to think of it, I hadn't seen them in a long time. They never ended up watching my mill's video. Given the strained relationship between my sister-in-law and her father, I could understand her wanting some distance. But still, shouldn't there be some moments to reminisce about the departed without holding on to grudges? Well, it's a family matter, and I shouldn't really intervene. As I was about to enter the house, I suddenly heard my father-in-law's angry voice. "You ungrateful brat, get out of here right now." Hearing that loud voice, I quickly went inside the house. I then saw my father-in-law yelling at my sister-in-law. "You're no daughter of mine. Just get lost. What's your problem? I was trying to do something nice for you. You're no father of mine. Everyone, move." My sister-in-law pushed past me and left. My brother-in-law followed her. "What happened, Ick?" My father-in-law clenched his fists with a frustrated expression. I wondered what could have caused all this. After calming down a bit, he began to explain what happened earlier on. Apparently, it was the first time he had seen my sister-in-law since that day, and out of the blue, she started asking about the inheritance. She was like, "How much money does Dad have left? How much did Mom leave behind? When I asked her why she was asking such things, she said if there's any, she wants her share. I lost it. Here I am, mourning the loss of my wife, and she brings up inheritance. What a joke. My father-in-law's anger flared up again. Considering what happened to my mill, it wasn't surprising that he was upset. Probing further might not be good for his health. Just as I thought of changing the subject, he suddenly went silent and collapsed. I quickly called 911, and he was rushed to the hospital. I called a friend to look after my son. After a while, my husband arrived at the hospital. Emma, honey, he must have run all the way. Even though it was a cool day, he was drenched in sweat. How's Dad? What happened? The truth was heartbreaking. Cancer. Yes, I just found out. It's in the final stages. No, it can't be. Just 2 years after Mom passed away. How? I was at a loss for words. Apparently, my father-in-law had been diagnosed some time ago. They had already detected the illness then, but due to his physical condition, surgery was deemed risky. According to the doctor, he wanted to keep his spirits up and asked to keep it a secret from both me and my husband. Why does life have to be this cruel? Dad. My husband then left the room to make a call to his office. Just then, the door opened abruptly. To my surprise, it was my sister-in-law. My brother-in-law came in shortly after. It seems like my husband had gotten in touch with them. Bolivia, your father is. Oh, I heard about it just now. He's in his final stages, isn't he? Yes, he is. What's with this sister-in-law's behavior? I felt something was off with her. Unlike the sorrowful expression my husband had shown earlier, she seemed cold, or maybe oddly composed. So, what's the plan going forward? I mean, he's going to pass away soon, right? We need to think about funeral expenses and all that. I felt a twinge of annoyance at her words. Olivia, isn't that a bit much? What do you mean? With your father in this condition, you're already worried about what comes next. Don't you have anything else to say? I didn't plan to get involved in another family's affairs, but I reacted before I could think it through. But what I got in response from my sister-in-law were rather cruel words. Eck, so annoying. You think if I say something nice, it'll cure his illness. If the doctors can't do anything, don't we have to think about what's next? Or what? Were you expecting me to say something like, Dad, don't leave us. I can't live without you. Sorry, but I don't think that way at all. Is this what normal people would say? I've never had a negative thought about my father-in-law. Among all the daughter-in-laws in the world, I believe I'm pretty blessed. Many might have issues with their mill or fill, but I've been grateful that's not the case for me. I have no idea about the bad blood between the sister-in-law and her father. Perhaps he was strict with her. But even with the recent inheritance issue, I'm genuinely upset. Oh, by the way, the doctor told me given his condition, it's likely he'll need to be cared for at home. But I can't possibly look after him, so I'll leave it to you and your husband. I might attend the funeral, I guess. Don't you think you'll regret this? Regret? Why would I? He's just a burden without any money. Besides, cleaning up afterward is a job for housewives like you and your husband, isn't it? Fine. We'll take care of him. Are you sure about this? Oh, I was only half joking, but if you say so. Lucky for me then. What about your husband? Is he okay with this? Well, I don't really have a say. I see, they're quite the pair, aren't they? Just then, my husband walks into the room. It was clear why it took him a while to return. His eyes were puffy and swollen. He must have been crying somewhere. My sister-in-law had already left the room with a smile on her face. Olivia already left. Yay. And about your father, I'll take care of him. Please let me do this. Please. I'm genuinely happy to hear that, Emma. I also want to spend as much time with Dad as possible, so thank you. And so, we began living with my father-in-law. Though, given his condition, it wouldn't be surprising if it deteriorated at any moment. I looked after him with an anxious face. Whenever I was taking care of him, he always apologized. I'm so sorry, I should be able to do this on my own. It's okay. I'm just happy to be here with you in these times. Well, my son is truly blessed to have someone like you as his wife. I don't have any regrets left. What are you saying? His voice had lost its strength. I had an intuition that his last days were approaching. The thought made my eyes water. But he's the one who's truly hurting. So I shouldn't cry. I kept telling myself that. But my father-in-law grew weaker day by day. He won't last much longer. These farts were running through my head when one day my sister-in-law arrived. "Hey there, Emma." "Olivia. Why are you here? Don't be so uptight. My brother told me Dad's condition is getting serious, so I thought I'd drop by just this once." "I see." Then, my sister-in-law approached our father and said, "Hey Dad, thanks for everything. Watch over us from above, okay? I promise to live the rest of my life to the fullest. I bet it's something you and Mom couldn't do, huh?" I was beyond angry. I was flabbergasted at her audacity. I had never seen someone like that. I wished she'd just leave. As I was thinking this, my father-in-law motioned for me to come closer. "Emma, he's calling for you." Really? Choosing the daughter-in-law over his actual daughter for his last words. "Fine. I'll see you at the funeral." As she was about to leave, my father-in-law whispered in my ear, "Sorry for the trouble. Turns out, I won the lottery the other day. I think it was about $1 million. What?" The surprise made me exclaim loudly. My sister-in-law turned to look at us. What happened?" As I hesitated on whether to tell her, my father-in-law tugged at my dress and shook his head. "So, you're saying I shouldn't tell my sister-in-law at all, right?" Then, he whispered in my ear, "I don't want to give it to my daughter. I'd like to give it to you, who took care of me until the end, and to my son." Only then did his eyes open with real intensity. I had no choice but to comply. But I did tell my husband. Upon hearing this, my husband decided to honor his father's last wish. Not long after, my father-in-law passed away. The last thing he said was, "I'll help you guys find a house with your mom in heaven, so don't rush your time here." It's such a typical thing for him to say. I think both my father-in-law and mother-in-law were magnificent people till the end. Both always had kind words for me till their last moments. They were truly wonderful in-laws for me. And my sister-in-law did come to the funeral. She had an irritated look the whole time, didn't help at all, and just ate food at the venue. Even though he's her own father. Then, at one point, my sister-in-law spoke up. "I've always wondered, why did you take such good care of Dad, Emma, huh? I mean, he didn't have any inheritance, and he wasn't that great a guy. Why go so far for someone without any return? Excuse me for saying this, but, what? You need to get a grip. Until the very end, your father talked about you, you know." "Really?" He said, "She'll be a mess once she's on her own. At least she got married, that's one good thing. Doesn't that show he was worried about you?" "I don't know about that." "What do you mean? People might get sentimental at the end, you know." So, he was probably laughing at me, looking down on me from the inside. But that's why now that he's gone, I feel so relieved. "Nick, I knew it, but I'm glad we didn't give it to you." "What are you talking about? My father-in-law won the lottery, $1 million. What?" "Well, he had the winning ticket, but he collapsed before he could cash it in. He was planning to give some to you too, you know." "That's a lie, right?" "It's true. But after seeing your attitude, he changed his mind. He gave it to us instead." "Give it back, now." "No can do. He told us not to give it to you." "Shut up. Give it back now." As my sister-in-law raised her voice, my husband stepped in. "Olivia, cut it out, will you?" "What? I thought we'd keep things civil until the end of the funeral, but this is enough. If you don't care about honoring Dad, then just leave, and never come near our place or our parents' graves again." Ick. But it seemed like it was too late. Because of the sister-in-law's loud outburst, the relatives who had heard it were already thinking badly of her. She and her husband had lost their place among us, and hastily made their exit. Thus, this chapter came to a close. Since then, we haven't seen my sister-in-law at all. I've heard from a few relatives that she's apparently separated from her husband. It seems after hearing the story I shared about my father-in-law that day, her husband began to view her differently, like he couldn't see her as his wife anymore. Now, she's supposedly working as a janitor. My husband and I have slowly been recovering from the grief of losing my father-in-law. Our son has been our beacon of hope. Watching our son's school sports day, both of us felt the need to stay strong, and felt rejuvenated by it. Our son, who has been so much more cheerful and resilient, has shown us that we have a lot to learn. We hope to grow together with our child in the coming years.